Round 2. Khabib versus McGregor is being called the biggest fight in UFC history. With the world watching, Ariel, who has more pressure coming into this fight?
Oh man, this is a fascinating question because I think you can make a very strong case for both men having pressure, an immense amount of pressure. You can make a case for Conor having more pressure. You can make a case for Khabib having more pressure. But at the end of the day, I have to say that I think there is a little more pressure on Khabib's shoulders. And the reason for that is if you lose to Conor, if you lose the belt, if you lose the grudge match, after everything that has happened, after everything that has been said, you fall several notches down the ladder. And it's not just down the spotlight ladder, it's down the pay ladder as well. It's down the sort of meritocracy ladder. I mean, it's a pretty fall drop. Look at a guy like Eddie Alvarez. He's not getting another shot at Conor McGregor. Look at a guy like Jose Aldo. He's not getting another shot at Conor McGregor. But if Conor loses this fight, what happens? He's still a main event guy. He's still a draw. He could go in a million different directions. He's talking about Anderson Silva. He could go after GSP. He could go to Tyron Woodley and they'll give him a. He could go with a third fight against Nate Diaz. So is he really losing all that much? Did he lose all that much when he lost to Nate Diaz? No, he didn't. He came right back there and he was going to main event 200 and he main evented 202 and then he got the Eddie Alvarez fight. So I think if Khabib loses, it's very hard to justify putting him back in big fights, big main event fights. For Conor, it's just another day at the office. People still want to see him fight.
Ariel, that is a very compelling argument, and I was inclined, before listening to you, to say that the pressure was on Conor McGregor, simply because he went into guerrilla mode and decided to, go out there in a street fight that ended him up in handcuffs and lawsuits and people going to the hospital. And I did think that a lot of pressure was on Conor, but hey, I agree with everything you're saying, and so many times people take their eye off the ball. They will look at somebody like Conor, who is famous, who is paid well, and think, if I can beat him, I take his place. Listen, make no mistake, Conor McGregor will wake up on October 6th, the biggest star in the sport. No matter what happens on October 6th, on October 7th, Conor McGregor will wake up the biggest star in the sport. And I think that there's a lesson in that. I think that Conor plays it very well. I think the fact that you just laid out, he's talking about fighting Anderson Silva and these things. That's what a smart fighter will always do. He will always have the next move lined up. A sucker fighter will do what a coach will tell you to do, which is to put everything on hold and just focus on what's in front of you. There's no anticipation. That may be good for the competitive nature that's going to take place on October 6th, but it's not good for the business, which leaves you the second those lights go down, they fade to black and roll the credits with the question that Dana White always gets asked, what's next? And a smart fighter will have that answer.
And yes, Khabib has fought in more professional fights. He's 26-0. But let's be honest, Chael, he's never fought on a stage like this. Brooklyn was nice. He was in the main event, but it wasn't the main event that everyone wanted to see. And I think the fact that Tony pulled out of that fight a week out actually took some pressure off of Khabib. Conor has fought on this stage many times before. I mean, you're looking at the resume right over there. Look at Conor's last 5 fights. Floyd Mayweather, Eddie Alvarez, Nate Diaz, Jose Aldo, Chad Mendes, right? And that's Nate Diaz twice, by the way. Khabib's last 5 fights, Al Iaquinta, Edson Barbosa, Michael Johnson, Darrell Horcher, Rafael Dos Anjos, and other than the Iaquinta fight, none of those were main events. A lot of them were actually on the prelims. So you're talking about a stage like Las Vegas, you're talking about pay-per-view, you're talking about facing the biggest guy and the biggest name in the history of the sport, and we've seen what happened when Jose Aldo was facing Conor and the way he looked in the cage right before the fight started. We saw what happened when Eddie Alvarez was facing him. People buckle under that pressure, and that's why I think that there's even more pressure, because this is just kind of new territory for Khabib. He is stoic. He is unflappable. It seems like it's very hard to get this guy off his game. But what happens when those lights are on and Bruce Buffer is saying your name and Conor's in there making faces at you and doing the billionaire strut? It's a whole different ballgame then, and I'm curious to see how he responds to it.
Ariel, did you just coin that, the billionaire strut? I've never heard that before. I love that. You need to answer me real fast.
This thing.
Did you just make that up? No, I know what it is. I've just never heard it. I thought that was called the McMahon walk, the Conor walk. No, I got it. I know where it came from. I haven't heard the term billionaire strut, and I love it. I wanted to give you a moment of credit. I'm going to carry that over, and I'll tell people I stole it from you. Listen, When you do look at this fight, though, okay, the shoe is on the other foot. So many people say, well, Khabib's never been in an environment like this. And I will fully concede to you that Conor McGregor has ice running through his veins. I thought it was never clearer brought to our attention than when he walked out at Madison Square Garden in a $17+ million gate to close the show against Eddie Alvarez and was calm as could be and broke out that strut. But I will also remind you, at one point in his career, he was fighting what people thought were easy opponents until he wasn't.
For more Ariel and the Bad Guy, sign up now for ESPN+.